That game was awesome last night, not because of the outcome. That was an incredible building. Crypto, formerly Staples, when it's the Lakers and it's right, that place is awesome. And that's what it was last night with the Lakers comeback. So let's move it back here a little bit. So I figured Boston would be up for this one after Saturday night's drubbing by the Warriors. And then Monday they lose to the Clippers team, which is the version of the Clippers that you go, oh, this is why we're still supposed to talk about them. Because I've said numerous times this season, like I don't really know what to do with them whenever anybody's bringing them up as like one of the true contenders. I'd like to maybe see it for a month straight from the group that's supposed to be out there, and then I'll make my opinion on it. They're the 6th seed as of today. They're 16-13. The Clippers are 3 games out behind the 1 seed, which is now tied with Memphis and New Orleans. We've been playing this game of the Western Conference standings all season long because if you look at it, Minnesota, who's technically out of the play-in today, is the 11th team in the West. They're only 5 games behind the 1 seed. So the Clippers 5-5 in their last 10, but Kawhi's starting to get things rolling. And the Monday version that we saw of him against the Celtics was the best of the season. He's only played 9 of their 29 games. Like I said, went off Monday, just looked better. Because even when he hit the game winner against Charlotte, I thought defensively, when you watch that game, to see Terry Rozier get him on like 3 possessions late in the game that mattered, that was a little like concerning. Although I would say Kawhi defensively is not nearly, and it's more reputation now and has been for a little while, but he also hasn't been healthy long enough for me to maybe think like, is it partly because of you? Yes. Is it partly because of health? Yes. But against Boston, it looked a lot better. Kawhi's played in 3 of the last 4 games. Shooting numbers are probably not where you'd expect to be, at least in this month, but he's playing 30 minutes per game in December, which is a jump up when you look at the game log, which again isn't very long because he's missed 20 of these games. The Clippers, however, are 28th in offense on the season. So they've been hanging in defensively. I still feel like 16-13 is a nice win for the ever-changing starting lineup for a team that feels like it's never quite had what they thought they were going to have, which I know will lead to revisionist history if it doesn't work again this year. Look, if you have a chance at free agency and trading, getting Paul George means you get Kawhi Leonard. Everybody does it. It's the same rule as the it's the same rule as the Kevin Durant and Kyrie rule. So Boston gets smashed by Golden State, which I thought was actually a nice reminder about who Golden State can be and why I'm just not ever writing this team off. Like, and I don't know that anybody really is, so it's not like, hey, wow, did you hear Russillo the other day? He's not writing off the Warriors. That guy's a fucking nut. No, that's not what I'm asking for. Golden State, however, with the bad defensive numbers that are on the road compared to their home stuff, like there's just little reminders of you going, yeah, okay, if you're capable of doing this to the Celtics, who've clearly been the best team in basketball this season, then this is why, even if the record in seeding isn't what I want it to be in February, I don't know that there's going to be a version of them in the regular season where I go, I just don't see it, because I thought that's what Saturday night meant. They also did such a great job against Tatum defensively, just having that second defender always ready to shade over and come over and help quickly, which I think took Tatum out. And then you could say it was both things. Golden State's defense on Saturday and Tatum having maybe the worst game of his season, where you're like, what's wrong with you tonight? Cuts, not being ready for the basketball, bad shot selection, some of the stuff that would bother you when the offense got a little bogged down with Boston. So with Boston losing Saturday and then Monday and then having the back-to-back with the Lakers, where I heard a stat the other day where when it's the Clippers-Lakers back-to-back, the Lakers have gotten the team 14 times out of the 21, and the second one where the Clippers have only had it happen 7. I think that's right. I'm not 100% sure, but that's a massive advantage for the Lakers. But because Boston had played so poorly, you're thinking they're going to be up for this game. And boy, were they up for it. Even though they have no Horford still, Rob Williams' flirtation with him coming back last week, which didn't happen. But Boston through the stretch, their last 7 games, they're last in offense in the NBA, which is a little surprising because overall in the season, that's been their biggest thing. The defense has been the part that's been below the standard, but it had gotten better, but nobody really cared because the offense was blowing everybody out. So Boston goes up 37-24 in the first quarter. They're up 79-59 in the third. Boston scored, though, because I was looking at this as I was sitting there. Boston scored 4 points over the last 5:40 of the third, and then 4 points the first 5:36 of the fourth. So that's 8 total points from the Celtics in almost a quarter's worth of play. Over 11-16, they scored 8 points. That building was rocking. They had LeBron working Tatum into the Grant Williams switch, it was just LeBron and AD stuff. They were doing it further away from the basket as opposed to what they were doing in like tight, shorter quarters there against Milwaukee. I shouldn't say shorter, but it was just they were doing it a lot closer to the basket, which you don't really see happen all that much, and it was working to perfection against Milwaukee. In this case, LeBron just wanted Grant. And seeing LeBron in person, as I've watched him on TV throughout the entire season, like it's very clear to me that at this stage of his career, it's him looking like he's lost a step to moments where, like last night, he had enough dunks that could have filled an entire season's highlight DVD. All right. He was going off while I think he was still tired. He even subbed himself out at one point too, because I think there are just moments with LeBron, especially on defense, where it's a lot to ask of him at this stage to keep it. I think he'll have a couple lulls throughout seasons or this season where he's just not feeling it physically, and yet he'll still have moments in the game where it doesn't look like he's himself, where it looks like he's a teenager. So it's actually, this is all being super impressed. And the defense was really good when the Lakers took this game back. They did a really good job, just some really simple schematic stuff of making sure they're focusing on Tatum, leaving Blake Griffin by himself. Blake had a rough start to the fourth quarter. First 3 minutes there were just tough. That's exactly what the Lakers wanted. I think because Grant Williams holds up so well defensively, they thought maybe they could live with it against LeBron. They couldn't. I mean, LeBron got him one time, just went right past him, got the switch, brought it back out, and it was just on. And then when you have Grant that far away, who's kind of your de facto five, if you have AD roll, the help is going to be too small. And if LeBron works Grant, the help is going to be too small. So Boston's they've been surviving defensively with this, but then they started exposing it. And even Westbrook on the ball defensively, like on the ball, it's different when he is opposed to having to think and make decisions off the ball. He's a mess, but he deserves credit for it. But as you're watching this comeback from the Lakers happen, and the crowd is going, I can't emphasize, it's just such a great crowd, right? I'm like, man, these guys are playing a lot of minutes. Looks like the Lakers are going to win it. AD misses 2 free throws. Free throw issue going back to the Philly game where he missed one that could have put it out of reach, or at least they would have been up with 3.1 to go. So I shouldn't guarantee anything on that. So that's part of the small AD storyline. Always makes his free throws. Now has missed big ones within a week of each other against good teams. You felt like you were going to beat at that time. Although that Philly game, let me back that up. They were down so much. Like, I can't believe they even got that thing to overtime. And then they got it to overtime, and then they couldn't score. And that's where, after Tatum hits this insane step back, where I was kind of towards the baseline against LeBron, that'll be one of the, like, when Tatum ends up doing whatever he ends up doing, that will be one of those possessions. I'm not calling it MJ going between his leg and the guard against the entire Celtics, including Bird, but it was flirting with that kind of level of, again, LeBron older, whatever, but it was a nasty, huge shot, ties it up, okay? So I'm like, man, the Lakers aren't subbing anybody, and they didn't. I went back and looked at it this morning. AD played 34 straight minutes. So that's the end of the second half, end of the first half, the entire second half, and overtime. The Westbrook, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Reeves, I think it was Troy Brown, they played all of the fourth quarter. That doesn't happen. I always look for subs. I I wonder what they're doing or how they do this. LeBron at times will come out in the middle of the fourth and then come back in. They didn't do any of that. And Ham explained it. But then once you started overtime up, I really felt like, okay, Boston tied it. They got to overtime, even though their offense has been so bad. They finished strong and had a couple nice plays. It feels like they've tightened up the defense here a little bit. Like, what are you going to expect from this group that's been out there the entire time on the Lakers side? And it's tough. The amount of energy that you have to use to come back like that and play defense the entire time. So Boston ends up winning this thing in overtime. I've already talked about the LeBron part of it. Hey, on my notes, I made sure the Westbrook is good part. Although Westbrook kind of played into the Celtics defensive strategy, which we see all the time with Westbrook. He couldn't help himself there in the overtime. Took a couple shots that you definitely didn't want him to take. But I would close on kind of like my thought on Tatum. I'm going to tease this. I'll probably just do it Friday. Because when Tatum, I always push back when it's like, hey, somebody's playing this well. He's playing this well in comparison to everybody else. This is what his stats say. But it's the same thing kind of like with the SEC conference stuff. For you to be the next conference that says we're now the best, That's going to take some time. Okay. That's not 48 minutes and what's the score. That's going to take some time. And whenever I think about the top 5 players in basketball, like that is almost something that takes a year plus for me to go, okay, I'm ready to go ahead and put this there for you. So for Tatum, who's probably there right now and is the MVP favorite, by the way. So you're like, okay, this is not breaking news. But to truly be there and then compare that list to like how many guys you could say, hey, I think he could be top 5 one day. That seems like I'm almost always going to say no to that. And Tatum's a yes. Tatum's a yes. Massive shot. I know he stunk on Saturday against Golden State. But some guys have some bad games, and he saved it for the very end against LA in a game that felt like, wait, they're going to blow this one too. And they didn't, especially after losing those first 2 in California.